ordinary boy living a pretty uneventful life suddenly gets accepted into Cassell Academy, a school he's never even heard of, let alone applied to. Confused but curious, he shows up and quickly realizes this place is anything but normal. Magic and weapons, in simpler words, it's basically just another day in America. Things get even weirder when Lou is assigned the rarest title of all, S rank. A rank only second to the principal. While everyone around him starts whispering about his potential, Lou's just wondering if it's too late to go home. What he doesn't know is that a god resides within him and it's about to awaken him into a world far bigger than he imagined. Lou Mingfei, a transfer student, found himself on a railway platform all alone, searching for a station called the elusive CC line, which is of course so expensive that he couldn't afford this without a scholarship that is supposed to take him directly to the Cassell College. An old woman had assured him this was the route, but confusion set in as he approached an officer for guidance. The officer, misjudging Lou's unkempt appearance, dismissed him as a beggar unaware of any CC line. Frustration and regret washed over Lou, realizing he had been misguided and was nearly broke. Trying to get something to eat, Lou attempted to buy a burger, but the restaurant staff, also thinking of him as a desperate disappointment like yourself, barred him at the entrance. At that moment, he ran into Finger Von Frings, a fellow student from Cassell College and an avid reader. Von noticed a card in Lou's hand and immediately recognized him as a fellow student. He took the little money Lou had to buy some Coke, sharing his own Cassell College card in camaraderie. Vaughn explained that Cassell College was hidden deep within the mountains, accessible only by a secret train that appeared randomly. The CC line was real but elusive, and only those of high rank were fetched directly by the college authorities. Vaughn, failing for 4 consecutive years, was a familiar yet unfortunate figure at the college. As they spoke, a strange boy appeared, speaking ominously of the end times. Vaughn, mistaking his ramblings for hunger, offered money, but was met with a burst of magical fire from the boy, shocking Lou into awakening from what was now clear, a vivid dream. In reality, Vaughn was hurrying onto a just-arrived train. The CC Express 1000, called forth by a shadowy figure who seemed surprised yet dismayed to see Vaughn again. Thinking, here we go again. Lou's situation took an awkward turn when his rank, unexpectedly higher than even the principal's, caused an uproar. The arrival process was nothing short of magical. One swipe of his card sent a surge of light rippling through the entire platform. A robust man, the fat old fart, leapt from the train, taking charge of Lou, emphasizing the secrecy and gravity of their studies with a non-disclosure agreement. The fat man began a strange tale of dragons and heroes, declaring that Cassell College trained students to slay dragons, a war that spanned millennia. Lou, skeptical, listened as the man spun tales of the Dragon King and the great dragon slayers of the past, thinking either he is an idiot or the old fart is making him one. Convinced he was in a lunatic asylum rather than an academic institution, Lou voiced his disbelief, only to be confronted by the same boy from his dream, reaffirming the fat man's stories. A second fat man, Masashi Toyama, appeared with boxes said to contain proofs of dragons. Among these, a dragon scale that deflected bullets and a preserved dragon that briefly came to life, breathing fire before returning to slumber, shook Lou to his core. Still reeling from the revelations, Lou walked with the professor, who seemed to anticipate his every question. The real and surreal blended confusingly around Lou as he stepped deeper into the mysterious world of Cassell College, facing the realities of a legacy steeped in dragon lore. As Lou stepped into Cassell College, the college, he was awestruck by its grand architecture. The professor accompanying him shared that many of the formidable high-level dragons were dormant in China, which had led the college to mandate Chinese language studies for all dragon slayers a decade ago. This, he explained, was vital for their missions into the heart of China to eliminate the Dragon Kings. While wandering the vast corridors of the school, Lou noticed an eerie absence of other students, which he pointed out to the professor. Just as he voiced his concern, alarms blared throughout the campus. Lou's first thought was a Dragon King attack, or just another little boy being dropped by America, a notion he found both absurd and terrifying. Before he could further doubt the surreal world he'd stepped into, gunfire erupted around them. In the chaos, a bullet struck the professor, knocking him out right in front of Lou, who was now panicking amidst the mayhem. It turned out that the shooter was the student union's president, Cesar Gattuso, signaling the start of an ordinary day in the US. As Lou crouched behind a pillar for cover since he doesn't really know what's going on, he witnessed only 4 people left in the fray, 2 leaders and their snipers, engaged in a fierce showdown. The leaders clashed swords, sparks flying with every strike. The weapons were named the Dictator and Murasamak, each as formidable as their wielders. In the midst of this, a woman landed beside Lou, her gun aimed past him. She instructed Lu to duck, firing over his head to take down a sniper. However, her action was met with immediate retaliation. The enemy sniper shot her down. Witnessing her fall shook Lu deeply, but before he could react, the boy from the airport appeared, offering his assistance to save Mingfei. Empowered by the chaos and needing to act, Lu grabbed a fallen gun and, in a desperate move, shot the celebrating sniper, and with this, he earned a US citizenship. This unexpected act left Caesar stunned. In a rapid succession, Lu managed to incapacitate Caesar and the other leader. As silence fell, an alarm rang again. This time, it was a swarm of nurses rushing to the scene. Lu, bewildered, initially thought it was another attack. However, he soon realized they were there to revive those fallen in the battle. As the dead began to rise, confusion spread about who had won the battle. A bald man burst onto the scene, scolding the students for their wasteful spectacle. This man was Professor Mansion, the head of finance at the college, whom the fat professor identified upon waking up. Mansion rebuked everyone, including Lu, for his unwitting participation as a freshman. The chaos turned out to be part of the Day of Liberty, an annual event where students used sedative-laced bullets in a mock battle to express freedom and camaraderie. The fat professor demonstrated this by shooting himself with the same bullet, only to knock himself out again, leaving Lu to think him quite foolish. As the dust settled, the principal called, dismissing Mansion's complaints and encouraging the students to enjoy the festivities. The principal also took a moment to praise Lu for his surprising victory against the top students. Later, in a private conversation, the principal expressed his belief that they needed a prodigy, a leader feared even by dragon kings, and saw potential in Lu. The next day was to start with the Hill operation, targeting a dragon king rumored to be resting in deep waters, a creature of bronze and fire. As Lu settled into his dorm room, he discovered that Vaughn, his eccentric acquaintance, was his roommate. The fate decided to gather two of the laziness, useless people in one room. Despite the tension from other students about a newcomer's victory, Vaughn congratulated Lu and offered to show him more of the college's secrets. As they toured the campus, Lu's eyes caught a bizarre sight, a massive tree split between frozen and verdant halves. This surreal imagery left him musing humorously about being out of his depth, akin to being chicken soup in a world of dragons and warriors. Vaughn chastised some students who nearly caused an accident with a youngling, a magical construct, which almost crushed them. Vaughn arrives just in time to save them. Amidst the chaos, Lu inquired about a majestic tree-like statue they were approaching. Vaughn explained that it was a sculpture of the World Tree, a legendary site where the fearsome Black Dragon Emperor Nidhogg was defeated. The college had erected the statue as a symbol of their triumph and heritage. As they admired the statue, Professor Guderian hurried towards them, breathless with urgency. He beckoned Lu to follow him back to the dormitory for a crucial test related to Lu's capabilities in the Draconic tongue, a determinant of his rank at Cassell College. Guderian, confident in Lu's abilities due to his S rank, introduced him to a mystical music box. He explained that the box contained a recording of a draconic text spoken by Nidhogg himself, which had the power to command the obedience of anyone who heard it. However, when Guderian played the box, Lu felt nothing but a yawn coming on. Guderian was taken aback by Lu's non-reaction and concluded that Lu must be a mutant, with human genes dominant over any dragon genes, making him immune to the music box's coercive power. Before Lu could process this information, Guderian rushed off, murmuring about a revelation, leaving Lu confused and worried about the implications of his test results. Vaughn, sensing Lu's anxiety about the upcoming 3E test and possible expulsion, suggested mischievously that Lu might cheat to secure his position. Though Lu was initially appalled by the idea, the gravity of his situation made him realize that by only cheating he can save his failing self. Meanwhile, chaos continued as Caesar, the Union president, was stripped of his right to use the Norton pavilion, stirring unrest among the students. As this unfolded, rumors swirled about Lu's immunity to the Imperium, piquing the curiosity of both students and faculty. In the midst of these developments, Guderian and Professor Mansion delved into ancient sacred documents that hinted at Lu's possible descent from the White Emperor, whose youngling, the Oracle, could counter the Imperium's effects. This revelation suggested that Lu might not just be immune but also incredibly important, potentially possessing powers that could balance the ancient forces represented by the Draconic Emperors. The night before the test, an anonymous student hacked the system to ensure Lu would pass, reflecting the complex dynamics and power plays within the college. On the day of the 3E test, Lu found himself in a surreal scenario where all students, except for him and a calm blonde girl, reacted bizarrely to the blank papers in front of them. As Lu wrote his answers, he was transported to a void where he met Lu Ming's, a boy who claimed to know all of Lu's darkest secrets. This encounter led Lu through a tour of his deepest fears and memories. Back in reality, Lu awakened to find the test over, with Nano admiring his peaceful demeanor. She showed him that he had somehow written 9 answers for 8 questions, a curious anomaly that added to his mystique. Celebrating his apparent success, Vaughn reviewed Lu's course selections and laughed at his choice of Professor Menace, known for his rigorous and demanding teaching style. Unbeknownst to them, Menace was currently leading a mission involving 2 other students, He, Shang, and Iki, to hunt a dragon in a submerged city. This dangerous expedition took a perilous turn when an earthquake disrupted their operations, breaking their connection with the surface, trapping the couples inside the old ruins. The narrative unfolds with high stakes, magical intrigue, and the looming threat of ancient draconic powers, weaving a complex tapestry of challenges and mysteries for Lu to navigate in his new, extraordinary environment. Professor Menace urgently communicated with the principal, reporting a breakthrough. Shang and Iki had discovered an entire city crafted from bronze deep in the ocean, matching legends of Norton, the king of fire and bronze, and they also trapped their sorry self in Dragon's Cave. Menace stressed the need for swift action. Shang had stumbled upon something alive within the city. The principal authorized Menace to eliminate any threats. As Menace prepared for the operation, he entered a room where a woman was holding a child with exceptionally pure dragon fluid, purer even than Jiang's. The woman, Nano's adoptive mother, held a pivotal role in their mission against Norton. Taking the child, Menace descended into the ocean's depths to rendezvous with Shang and Iki. He restored their communications and employed his youngling to breach the ancient gates. They encountered a cursed eater, a creature burned alive yet preserved as charcoal. Menace created a vacuum barrier, allowing the child to interact with the cursed body, which spat out a key to further unlock the city's secrets. After this, Menace sedated the child and instructed Shang and Iki to either retrieve the Dragon King's skeleton or deploy a nuclear option if it's the last resort to save humanity from this bronze bastard. Back on the ship, Menace coordinated the dive as Shang sent back images of the oxygen-depleted environment and a vast chamber with interconnected bronze tunnels and an alchemy machine. A giant bronze pillar shaped like a tree loomed before them, its top glowing with draconic scripts, hinting at deep secrets. Amidst their exploration, Iki, overwhelmed by the place's power, severed her lifeline in a panic. Menace ordered an immediate evacuation, but Shang intervened, rescuing Iki and discovering a heavy object they couldn't surface with. Instead, they collected bronze samples, inadvertently activating a mechanism that summoned a massive idol. This idol, recognizing Iki as a conduit due to her contact with the dragon's peak, manipulated her actions. Shang, realizing the implications, found a bone receptacle on his back, a sign of a cycle of life and death suggesting the presence of a dragon baby. The city, now aware of their presence, began to react aggressively. Meanwhile, back at the college, Lu awoke from a vivid dream where he conversed with Lu Ming's on a bell tower, discussing the thin line between reality and dreams. Ming's warned him of upcoming troubles and shared a spell, Black Sheep Wall, which could reveal extensive details about one's surroundings but cautioned against its misuse. As an emergency alarm blared, all ranked students were summoned to the library. Vaughn, realizing his rank did not qualify, decided to give him another slumber of sleep. The gathered students, including Lu, were briefed by Guderian and Mention on the trapped members within the dragon ruins. Their task was to decode draconic texts that typically took years to translate, now with only 20 minutes to spare due to the oxygen constraints. Lu, faced with the complex interface, recalled the Black Sheep Wall spell. Despite Ming's caution, he cast it, inadvertently shutting down power across the entire college, and mysteriously, the world. When power returned, the escape path had been solved, with Lu's name surprisingly credited with the solution. The principal and other students were stunned by the swift resolution, and the map was immediately sent to guide Shang and Iki to safety. The event underscored Lu's unique capabilities and hinted at his deeper connection to the draconic mysteries surrounding them. Menace sent instructions to Shang through his Void Snake, a powerful communication spell. Shang was struggling because the map they were using was enormous and constantly changing, making it nearly impossible to analyze the environment. Sensing Shang's frustration, Menace hinted at using a key to unlock the solution. Menace then used a child, who had special abilities, to interpret the map. The child traced a line, revealing the way out. They needed to dive deeper, maneuvering through gaps between the walls and bronze canals, like navigating through an ancient diagram. However, Shang and Iki had only 3 minutes of oxygen left. It's not long before they will meet the end. Despite this, Menace was optimistic, thinking they had enough time to escape. Shang informed Menace that he would retrieve his void snake to conserve energy, which would cut off their communication. Menace wished Shang and Aki a safe return. As they prepared to dive, Aki gazed at Shang, expressing a sense of resignation, knowing they were running out of oxygen. She asked Shang to stay with her so she could see him until the place was completely flooded. Aki wanted to confess something she had held back for a long time, her feelings for him, giving Shang's ugly self some sense of joy. But before she could say anything, Shang kissed her, promising that he wouldn't let her die like this. Holding her hand, he steeled himself for the long dive. Meanwhile, Professor Menace was celebrating the apparent success of the mission when a sudden realization struck him. He urgently ordered the captain to lower the lifeboats as far as possible. Rushing to the dock, Menace knew that while Shang and Aki might make it out of the Bronze City, they wouldn't have enough oxygen to reach the surface. Overcome with emotion, both Menace and the key child began to cry. At the same time, the principal, Guderian, and Menstein were discussing their next steps, having lost communication with Shang and Aki for over 10 minutes. All they could do was wait and hope for the best. Lu, who was deeply worried about Shang and Aki, received a phone call from a friend who thought Lu was in America. Sensing Lu's distress, the friend tried to cheer him up, urging him to pray for his friend's safety. Meanwhile, the Sanduping City Waterway Authority was hovering over Chang's ship, searching for survivors. Lifeboats scoured the waters for Shang and Aki, but after 14 minutes, they still hadn't found them. Just as Menace was about to lose hope, Aki surfaced, holding a dragon baby. She was in tears, urging them to take the vase she carried and leave her alone. Aki revealed that Shang had sacrificed his life to retrieve the vase. Before anyone could react, Aki dove back into the water and disappeared, only to be eliminated by something lurking beneath the surface. Menace's in a desperation state got even sadder and furious that he swore to avenge his students. The creature responsible was massive, resembling a giant fish. Menace ordered the ship to prepare for battle, grabbed his gun, and ran to the dock. He fired multiple shots at the creature, but they barely affected it. The creature, identified as the Dragon King, leaped out of the sea, aiming to take down a helicopter. In response, Menace ordered the captain to deploy every weapon they had. The Dragon King swallowed the bombs, which Menace then detonated, causing a huge explosion. However, Menace realized that this wasn't a true Dragon King, as they weren't foolish enough to eat bombs. While Menace was discussing the situation with his secretary, the creature suddenly emerged from the water and impaled the secretary with its horn, dragging her to the bottom of the sea. Devastated, Menace began shooting wildly into the water. The creature surfaced briefly, seemingly mocking Menace with a laugh before disappearing again. The Dragon King then positioned itself directly under the ship, with its mouth open, ready to attack once they detonated the bombs, planning to use the explosion as a weapon, similar to a dragon's flame. Menace ordered the captain to steer the ship toward the gorge's dam. The creature followed at full speed, but they managed to trap it between the dam's gates and detonated the bombs. The explosion was powerful enough to break the creature's fangs, which then pierced Menace. As the battle ended, the principal appeared on the screen, telling the students to celebrate because the ship, Monaya, had safely reached the reservoir. The students cheered, relieved that the mission was a success. The principal thanked Lu for his role in deciphering the map and contributing to the mission's success. As they were heading back to their dorm, Jiang thanked Lu for his contribution and proposed that Lu become the new president of the Lionheart Club. Lu was hesitant and shocked, knowing that he wasn't ready to lead the club. Just as Jiang was making his case, the bell rang again, signaling that someone had passed away. It was the bell of mourning. Jiang explained the meaning of the bell to Lu. Meanwhile, Menace was sitting on the dock when the principal approached him. Menace, gravely injured, refused medical help, instead waiting for the principal's final report. Menace believed he had killed one of the Dragon Kings and mentioned the vase that Shang and Aki had brought back. He explained that the vase had been sent to the college. The principal speculated that the vase might contain Norton's cocoon, possibly holding an egg or bones. Menace urged the principal to keep the true extent of their losses hidden from the students, not wanting them to grieve for the fallen. As Menace drifted off to sleep, he asked the principal to give his farewells to Nano and to find her a better mentor. Lu received a text from Nano, inviting him to the upcoming welcome dance at the Amber Pavilion, hinting that Caesar also wanted a word with him. From behind, Vaughn chuckled, predicting that Caesar would likely recruit Lu into the student union. He encouraged Lu, reminding him never to doubt his worth again. Vaughn explained that Caesar came from the influential Gattuso family, known for their expansive business empire across the Western world, with Caesar poised as the heir from a young age. Lu wasn't impressed, finding Caesar's demeanor too arrogant, a sentiment Vaughn shared. Despite this, Lu was hesitant to attend the party, citing a lack of formal attire to hide his brokenness. Vaughn suggested a practical solution, renting a suit from the drama club. Vaughn wanted to join because there would be expensive foods which he could never taste even if he worked the rest of his life for it. The following evening, Lu and Vaughn arrived at the Amber Pavilion with their hungry stomachs. The entrance was lavishly decorated by Caesar with a truckload of rose petals, creating a grand red carpet, clearly showcasing his wealth. As they navigated the opulent setup, Nano appeared, playfully reminding Lu to take care of his rented suit to avoid any fees. The roses, it turned out, were part of Caesar's grand gesture for Nano, as he was there to escort her personally. Lu was taken aback by the extravagant 21st century attire that made the event feel like a step back in time. The dance kicked off with a speech from Caesar, the Union president, revealing that the occasion was also a birthday celebration for Nano. Amidst the formalities, Vaughn, ever the character, dragged Lu onto the dance floor, leading to a light-hearted dance between the two men. Nano, noticing this, teased that Caesar's pompous behavior might just drive Lu straight into the ranks of the Lionheart Club. Caesar then seized the moment to elevate the evening's tone. He halted the music to speak on nobility and the responsibilities of those at Cassell College, emphasizing that the attendees, all elite freshmen, were destined to defend humanity in the Draconic Wars. His charismatic speech rallied the crowd, earning him roaring applause and chants of his name. He then singled out Lu, inviting him to stand beside him as a gesture of respect and potential recruitment. As the event proceeded, Nano decided to leave early, and Caesar courteously offered his car for her comfort. Meanwhile, Rin, the girl Lu had noticed during the 3E test, approached him for a dance. Encouraged by Vaughn, Lu accepted, and they moved gracefully together on the dance floor. Rin, leading the dance, advised Lu to carry himself like a king, leaving a strong impression on the attendees as they applauded the performance. After the dance, Lu rushed outside to wish Nano a happy birthday and found her about to leave in Caesar's car. She asked Lu if he could drive her to the mountain summit as she was too tired to drive herself. A chance with collage beauty is worth having. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a red alert from Eva announcing a dragon attack on the campus. The situation escalated quickly as 13 bikers breached the campus defenses, aiming to seize the valuable vase discovered by Menace. Back at the college, the faculty distributed weapons to qualified students and strategized their defense. Lu, now driving Nano, was surprised when Mings appeared in the car, cryptically suggesting that Lu had deeper feelings for Nano. This little bastard sure knows how to tease Mingfei's sorry life. The conversation took a bizarre turn as Mings imparted a new skill to Lu before vanishing, leaving Lu to explain the odd encounter to a puzzled Nano. As they reached the mountain summit, the campus below was a battleground. The attackers, having lost 3 teams already, communicated with an external helper, who reassured them that the powerful law of the Night Watchman would soon be deactivated. Back at Cassell College, a masked professor coordinated with Mention to deactivate the law, allowing them to use the vacuum serpent technique to locate and neutralize the intruders. Mention was taken aback when his father, the Night Watchman, agreed to deactivate the law, a decision that broke his usual strict adherence to protocol. This complex tapestry of personal invitations, dramatic confrontations, and strategic battles painted a night of high stakes and deep emotions, all under the looming threat of draconic warfare and campus intrigue. The Night Watchman decided to release the law as a birthday gift for his champion sperm. Meanwhile, Nano took Lu to a spring where they could wait until the sky cleared to see the stars. As they sat by the water, they accidentally dropped their food into the cold water, which made them both burst out laughing. Trying to lighten the mood, Lu started a conversation about the recent mission, mentioning that Shang and Aki were cooked by Sea Dragon. He asked Nano if they had been her close friends. Nano revealed that the authorities had only announced 2 deaths to avoid causing panic among the students, but in reality, there had been more. She also mentioned that Professor Lars, one of the teachers at the college, had died during the mission. Lars had been her advisor and a good teacher, but the authorities had claimed he was on another mission, just as Lars had predicted they would if he ever died. This confirmed for Nano that Lars was indeed gone. Curious, Lu asked if Lars's death had affected her, but Nano turned the question back on him, asking if he would post about her death on the school message board if she were to die. She suggested that he might do what the authorities did, cover it up and only tell those who needed to know. Lu was surprised to learn how students and teachers alike feared death. Nano explained that many graduates left the school without ever revealing the truth about dragons, while others stayed for their own reasons. Her reason for staying was to get away from home and to avoid daddy issues. Changing the subject, Nano asked why they couldn't see the stars, which she jokingly referred to as big fireflies. She then shifted the conversation to some philosophical musings before finally talking about the college. Meanwhile, back on campus, the Night Watchman had successfully released the law. As the law was activated, the intruders began using their younglings to create a cover for themselves as they made their way toward Valhalla. Mention used his vacuum serpents to detect their location, while the masked professor focused on protecting the areas where lamps were lit, which were less defended. The entrance to the corridor was protected by a 100 kilovolt electric current. The intruders had a detailed infiltration route map provided by their client, who ordered bounty hunter number 13 to target the wine cellar. As number 13 moved towards the wine cellar, he found himself in the skulled zone. His client instructed him to use a black card to open the door, which he needed to pass through to reach the skulled zone. The gate opened easily, and the intruder mocked the security system as he entered. Meanwhile, Caesar was using his Yongling, preparing for the arrival of the intruders at his location. He contacted Jiang to inform him of the intruders' approach and proposed a bet on who would finish their fight first. Jiang, who was calmly reading a book in his room, received orders from Eva to withdraw the other lion hearts from the vicinity of the library. Susie, another lion heart, was confused by the order, but Jiang knew he had to follow it. Eva had ordered everyone to leave the library because Jiang's Yongling was too powerful and might accidentally harm his comrades. The intruders approached Caesar, invisible to everyone except him. Once they revealed themselves and took their positions, the students prepared to fire, but both Caesar and the captain of the intruders stopped them. The captain of the intruders, Sakatoku Mai, suddenly received a scam call and started yelling at the caller. Mai then turned her attention to Caesar, noting that she had heard he was a rich and arrogant brat, but he wasn't as bad as she expected. Mai revealed that she was Aki's elder sister, though she admitted that she didn't feel sad about Aki's death because they hadn't grown up together. However, she resented that her sister had been used as someone else's pawn. They agreed to start their fight once the song Mai was playing ended. Mai explained that they were there to retrieve the dragon's urn, and Caesar realized that she was a revolutionary. Mai believed that the dragon's bones would bring about a new era, one that would be extraordinary. As the song neared its end, the lights suddenly went out and multiple gunshots rang out. Mai, like Caesar, was using frig rounds to minimize casualties. When the shooting stopped, only Caesar and Mai were left standing. Caesar asked if she wasn't going to search for the dragon's urn, but Mai revealed that her job was to delay Caesar and Jiang. The task of retrieving the urn was left to the masked girl. Mai then chose to fight Caesar in the darkness, giving him the advantage since he was more accustomed to it. The fight began with Caesar using his Yongling, but he quickly lost sight of his target. Meanwhile, the masked girl arrived at the library to face Jiang. Guderian, watching from a distance, was puzzled that the girl had come to confront Jiang without a weapon, but the masked professor speculated that her Yongling might be powerful enough to make up for it. Jiang, understanding the urgency, began using his Yongling to finish the fight quickly. Guderian was shocked to see Jiang's ruler's flame Yongling, a rare and dangerous ability. To the professor's surprise, the masked girl also used ruler's flames. At the same time, Eva detected intruder number 13. Although she knew he was an enemy, he had full access rights, so she warned him to leave before it was too late. Eva also guided him to an unused route in the skulled zone that hadn't been accessed in 35 years. Number 13 entered the route, which was narrow and difficult to navigate. His client, pleased with his performance, increased his reward to 5 million. Eventually, number 13 found an underwater door that was locked. As soon as he touched the handle, he had a bad feeling but proceeded to open the door anyway. Back at the spring, Nano and Lu were still talking. Nano mentioned that Caesar didn't want to copy Jiang's style, so he threw a party instead. She also encouraged Lu to join the student union, hinting that it could be a good experience for him. Nano intended to demonstrate to Caesar that Lu, despite his S rank, wasn't a threat. During the party, a gathering of elite students, Caesar had expressed hopes of discovering a powerful ally. Ironically, he found Rin, who openly admired Lu, causing Lu to blush when he heard about it. Nano teased Lu, playfully suggesting that an A-rank girl like Rin was a perfect match for an S-rank guy like him. This lighthearted banter led Nano to encourage Lu more seriously to join the student union. Lu, however, was skeptical. He wondered if Caesar was using Nano to lure him into the union, a tactic he internally labeled a honey trap. Although part of him was tempted by Nano's charm and the intrigue of the union, he resisted, voicing his suspicions to Nano. She quickly dismissed these doubts, assuring him that her invitation was of her own volition, not Caesar's manipulation. She wanted someone she could trust and influence within the union, not for power over Caesar's followers but for her own sense of agency, separate from her engagement to Caesar, an arrangement set by their families. Caught off guard by the revelation of her engagement, Lu was unsure how to respond. Nano persisted, promising to support him at social events like the dance, where she regretted not intervening to help him navigate the evening, an intervention Caesar had explicitly blocked. Encouraged by her sincerity, Lu agreed to consider her proposal, especially after Nano playfully hinted at needing an immediate birthday gift. As they waded deeper into the pond, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Nano mused about wanting a special flower for her birthday. Remembering a trick Mings had taught him about creating a magical moment with flowers, Lu secretly arranged a surprise. He activated the car lights and played music, coordinating with a fireworks display that lit up the sky with birthday messages. Nano, unaware that Lu was behind the surprise, was thrilled, her joy mingling with tears as she remembered her mother. Meanwhile, back at the lab, intruder number 13 experienced a surreal moment when he was momentarily startled by a large shark, which, sensing his presence, quickly swam away. His mission continued as he navigated through the corridors of the Svartalfheimer lab, eventually finding the dragon's urn under heavy research. The principal, overseeing the project, discussed the urn's ancient origins and the delicate procedures needed to keep a potentially alive dragon emperor dormant. The urn, crafted from regenerative metal, was nearly indestructible except by a specific solvent. Just as number 13 prepared to leave, having completed his mission but disturbed by flashbacks of familial connections, he noticed a critical split in the urn, an ominous sign that something might have already escaped. As the temperature in the room dropped to preserve the urn's integrity, the principal made a harrowing decision to sacrifice himself to the Black Dragon Emperor, hoping to control or contain the power within. At the same time, May and Caesar's battle reached a climactic pause when a loud explosion disrupted their duel, and they discovered burning footprints and a hole in the wall, evidence of a fiery escape or entry. Despite the chaos, May dismissed the idea of an intruder being responsible, noting the supernatural heat of the traces. As the night drew to a close, Lu and Nano headed back to the college, their bond strengthened by the night's revelations and shared experiences, leaving the mysteries of the dragon's urn and the explosive events at the lab to unfold as they re-entered the world of Cassell College. After descending from the mountain, Nano received a message from Caesar. Lu was worried about the situation, but Nano reassured him, reminding him that the academy had been at war with dragons for centuries. Besides, Caesar and Jiang were also present, and she was confident that everything would be over by the time they returned. Meanwhile, Jiang was engaged in a fierce battle with a masked girl. Despite his best efforts, he found himself at a stalemate with her. The masked girl's mastery of ruler's flames surpassed Jiang's abilities, allowing her to toy with him and delay his progress. Elsewhere, Guderian was concerned about the academy's situation. He noticed an intruder identified as number 13, trying to escape while everyone was focused on him, raining bullets in his direction. Despite the relentless assault, number 13 seemed to have perfect luck as no bullets touched him. Frustrated, Guderian ordered all the students to stop the intruder from escaping. The students intensified their efforts, increasing the number of bullets fired, but still, none hit their mark. Eventually, number 13 reached the school gate, completely unscathed. Just as he began to feel invincible, a car suddenly hit him from behind, catching him off guard. The car was driven by Lu, who was immediately worried about having run someone over. Lu stopped the car and went to check on the person he hit. To his surprise, number 13 pulled a dagger and held it to Lu's neck, thinking he was under attack. But when they looked at each other, Lu Mingfei recognized number 13 as his brother, Lao Tang. Both brothers were overjoyed to see each other and began bumping fists, excited to reunite after such a long time. Lao asked Lu if this was his Cassell College and explained that he was there on a job that he had just completed. Suddenly, they saw a crowd rushing towards them, armed with rifles. Realizing the danger, Lu had an idea. He quickly jumped back into the car with Lao and suggested that Lao pretend to take him as a hostage to escape unharmed. Nano, watching this plan unfold, couldn't help but look on with sarcastic eyes. Lao agreed and told Lu to act naturally as a hostage, even encouraging him to loudly beg for his life. Lu, with his over-the-top acting skills, began to play the part. Just as Lu was about to start the engine and make their escape, a ball of flame landed behind them. Neither of them dared to turn around to see what it was. The students around them were shocked at the sight of the flaming ball. Lu and Lao, feeling the intense heat, asked Nano to look, but she hesitated and instead told them to use the rearview mirror. When they finally looked, they saw a child covered in flames. Terrified, Lu panicked and sped away in the car. The professor quickly realized the gravity of the situation. They were facing a real dragon. The students opened fire, but their bullets evaporated before they could even reach the dragon. The masked professor immediately ordered everyone who wasn't fighting to evacuate and instructed the remaining units to surround and try to kill the dragon. The dragon, burning everything in its path, had taken control of the melted bronze from the casting. The masked professor ordered Lancelot to use a grenade launcher, but it proved ineffective against the dragon. They were running out of options, and nothing seemed to work. The situation grew even more dire when the dragon began using Yangling ruler's flames, knocking down multiple students. Jiang, who was still battling the intruder, noticed the impact of the ruler's flames from a distance. He stopped and asked the masked girl if she was responsible, but she denied it. Jiang then called Lancelot, who explained the situation to him. Realizing the seriousness of the threat, Jiang instructed Lancelot to hide and avoid any action. He then turned back to the masked girl and asked if releasing a dragon was part of their plan, but she also denied it. With that, she left Jiang alone, leaving him to wonder what was really going on. Meanwhile, Klein asked his father if he could reinstate the law to counter the dragon, but the night watchman explained that his law was ineffective against someone with higher blood, concluding that the dragon was likely one of the first race, one of the 4 rulers. Mei was desperately trying to contact her client to understand the situation better. When the client finally picked up, she was baffled by the dragon's presence and asked Mei to send a video. After watching the footage, the client recognized the dragon as Constantine, an unstable dragon that could implode at any moment, potentially annihilating everything within its range. The dragon was searching for his brother, Lao. Meanwhile, Lu and Nano were hiding behind pillars, trying to make sense of the situation. Nano speculated that the dragon might be looking for one of them. Suddenly, Vaughn appeared behind them, startling Lu so much that he screamed, inadvertently catching the dragon's attention. As the dragon began moving towards them, Nano suggested they head to the pool in the building behind them. They all rushed towards the pool, and on the way, Nano encountered Caesar, who told her to protect Lu if the dragon was after him. Mei also decided she couldn't leave her comrades behind. The client called back and ordered Mei to attack using frig rounds and to avoid using metal-based attacks. Caesar relayed the order to everyone, and they began using frig rounds, which turned out to be effective, gradually pushing the dragon back. Meanwhile, Lu, Lao, and Vaughn were hiding in the pool, chatting and trying to calm down. But Lao could sense that the dragon was still searching for them. They decided to hide underwater, but when Lu surfaced, he found himself in a different place. Confused, he initially thought it was Ming's doing, but then he saw the dragon, who once again called him brother. EP10, Lu encountered a dragon that surprisingly called him brother. As the dragon moved toward him, it started sniffing him, and Lu felt the warmth of the dragon's body, thinking for a moment that the dragon might have a fever. Suddenly, the mist around them cleared, revealing a giant bronze palace on a mountain. It was then that Lu realized the structure was the Bronze Palace, and the boy standing in front of him was none other than a dragon emperor. Hesitant and unsure, Lu took a step back while the dragon stepped closer to him. Just when things seemed most tense, Ming's appeared out of nowhere, kicking the dragon emperor away and pulling Lu back into the real world. Lu woke up beside a pool, noticing burned footprints nearby. As he was trying to make sense of everything, the principal appeared and told him to follow. Lao Tang and Vaughn were nowhere to be found. The principal led Lu to the top of a tall tower, telling him that even though this was their first meeting, the principal knew Lu very well. They stopped at a window that offered a clear view of the battlefield below, where students were bombarding the dragon with frig rounds, effectively cornering it and leaving it unable to move. The principal then pulled out a rifle from a briefcase, along with a special bullet made from the 5th element, the Philosopher's Stone. He explained that this alchemical bullet was one of the few weapons capable of killing a dragon emperor. The principal handed the rifle and bullet to Lu, ordering him to take aim at the dragon emperor. Although Lu didn't want the responsibility, the principal expressed his confidence in him, reminding Lu of how he had defeated the top 2 students on his very first day at the academy. Lu regretted that incident and mentioned that he planned to apologize to them. The principal then directed Lu's attention to the dragon's forehead, where a 3rd eye was located, its weak spot. Lu only needed to take the shot when the principal gave the signal. Before leaving, the principal patted Lu on the shoulder and reassured him that he was the right person for the job. Meanwhile, Lao Tang and Vaughn were hiding under a pillar near where the dragon was cornered, blaming each other for leaving Lu behind. Both of them were terrified when the dragon arrived. The dragon spotted Lao hiding under the pillar and started calling out to him. Furious, the dragon transformed into its original form and continued to call out to Lao. The principal finally joined the battlefield, ready to face Constantine, the Dragon Emperor. He jumped into the air and activated his Yongling ability, Zero Time, freezing everything around him except for himself and Lu. With time frozen, the principal slashed Constantine's forehead, revealing the 3rd eye. He then signaled Lu to take the shot. Although Lu hesitated, Ming's urged him to do it. Finally, Lu pulled the trigger, landing a perfect hit on the dragon's eye. As the bullet struck, the principal released the Yongling, and the bullet caused the dragon to lose its power to control metal. The dragon's color changed from red to white, signaling its weakened state. The principal then ordered the students to switch to real bullets and open fire on the dragon. In a desperate attempt to save Lao, who was lying on the ground, the dragon used its wings to shield him from the barrage of bullets. However, the relentless gunfire stripped the dragon of its flesh, reducing it to bones. As the dragon lay dying, its last words were a plea for Lao to run for his life and never return to this world. Overcome with emotion, Lao began running, memories of his past life flooding back to him. He remembered Constantine and finally fell to his knees under the thundering sky, shedding tears. At that moment, Lao regained all his past memories and realized his true identity as the Dragon Emperor, Norton. With his memories restored, Norton unleashed his full power. Meanwhile, the night watchman and the principal discussed Norton's return. The principal had known all along that the four rulers were twins and was aware of Lao's true identity. Lao, it turned out, was the one who had escaped from an urn 80 years ago. The principal's plan had been to kill Constantine in front of Norton to enrage him. The principal, a member of the Dragon clan, was running out of time and wanted to see the dragon's destruction before he died. The only friend he had left was the Night Watchman, and together they knew the only way to kill the Dragon Emperor for good, they had to strike before he created an urn, which served as a lifeline for emperors. The principal had wanted to awaken Norton to harvest his bones for research, and now that Norton was full of despair, they had their chance to kill him. Deciding it was time to act, the principal called Caesar to begin the hunt. The next morning, Vaughn informed Lou that the predecessors of the Academy's creator were gathering in Valhalla, a secret party composed entirely of dragon slayers. Many dragon slayers were now being brought to the school. On Nano's request, Lou had submitted his application to join the student union. A man soon brought Lou his student union ID, which Nano had already prepared, and instructed him to attend a meeting at Amber Building. There, Caesar was discussing the upcoming mission with the principal. The principal instructed Caesar to take Lou along on the mission, recognizing his potential and the important role he would play in the battles to come. Caesar invited Lou and Vaughn to his room, where he welcomed them to Operation Bronze. He addressed Lou as an S rank, informing him that after 2 months of training, he would be heading to Shin. Lou, trying to downplay his abilities, joked that he was only good at messing things up. However, Caesar wasn't swayed by Lou's self-deprecation and asked if he could dive. If not, Caesar suggested that Lou learn with Nano's help. Lou continued to insist that he was useless, lacking both skills and abilities, but Caesar was unconvinced. He reminded Lou of his impressive performance during the battle against Constantine, where Lou had proven himself as an elite. Caesar was determined not to let Lou slip away, explaining that it was common for S ranks to take on dangerous missions, especially since the executor unit was short on personnel. Despite Caesar's insistence, Lou tried to find a way out of the mission. He pointed out that there were 360 individuals in his class and suggested that if they recruited 300 slayers a year, they would have plenty of people in the coming years. Caesar, however, clarified that only 2 first-year students had been selected for the bronze mission, emphasizing the significance of Lou's selection. Lou argued that he should have been consulted before being included in such a mission. But Caesar explained that it wasn't his decision, it was the principal who had chosen Lou. At that moment, the other person selected for the mission arrived, and it turned out to be none other than Rin from Saki. Lou tried to convince Rin that she might die on this mission, but Rin, having already participated in similar missions, calmly stated that their purpose was to protect humanity. Caesar, having had enough of Lou's reluctance, confronted him about his apparent cowardice. When Lou admitted that he had only come to the academy for the free education, Caesar bluntly told him to quit and return to a normal life if he didn't care about anyone else. Lou was about to hand over his union ID when Nano appeared, telling Caesar he was being too hard on a rookie. She advised Lou to take his time and make his own decision. After thinking it over, Lou reluctantly agreed to go on the mission, but he warned Caesar not to blame him if he became a burden to the team. Training soon began, with Lou being trained by Nano, Caesar, and other elites. 2 months later, Lou found himself standing in front of a mirror, feeling foolish in his combat suit. He regretted accepting such a dangerous mission and questioned his decision. Although he didn't know who his partner would be, Vaughn hinted that it would likely be Nano since couples weren't allowed to dive together. Curious about Vaughn's motivations, Lou asked him why he had returned to the academy despite dropping out multiple times. Vaughn joked around with some philosophical talk before admitting that he was only there for the food. Trying to lift Lou's spirits, Vaughn reminded him that he had a chance of survival despite Lou's fears of dying. Feeling a mix of fear and uncertainty, Lou handed Vaughn his S-rank credit card with $1 million limit, telling him to use it if he didn't make it back from the mission. As Lou was getting emotional, Vaughn had already started ordering expensive food with Lou's card, making light of the situation. However, Vaughn soon got serious, urging Lou to focus and take the mission seriously since he had a real chance to make it through. Meanwhile, Norton had summoned a dragon from the depths of the sea. The dragon, Samson, was someone Norton hadn't seen in 2,000 years. With the preparations for Operation Bronze complete, the principal gave the order to initiate the mission. Lou and the others received final tips from Klein, who reminded them that they were now professional dragon slayers and needed to act accordingly. As the team prepared to depart, Lou was looking for Jiang, another top student, but couldn't find him. Their ship had been upgraded since the last mission and was now capable of withstanding any creature's attack. The creature that had attacked them previously was Norton's most powerful servant. The ship was also equipped with 3 storm torpedoes designed to combat monsters that could repel metal attacks. The diving team, which included Lu, Nano, Rin, and Caesar, was tasked with carrying a single special bomb that would destroy the entire ruin. Lu, curious about the mission's objective, asked Klein why they needed to destroy such a valuable treasure. Klein explained that they didn't have the technology to retrieve it, and if the Dragon Emperor got his hands on it, it could lead to catastrophic consequences. Although Lu was initially relieved that Caesar's team would carry the bomb, his relief was short-lived when Rin informed him that she couldn't dive that day. This meant the responsibility of detonating the bomb fell on Lu's team. Despite his reluctance, Lu had no choice but to accept the task. He was worried about facing a dragon, but Klein assured him it was unlikely. Norton was probably sleeping to regain his full power, preparing to use the ultimate youngling, the Torched Dragon. The Dragon Emperors were known for their powerful younglings, capable of world-ending destruction. This was why the palace needed to be destroyed, to prevent it from becoming Norton's resting place. Lu and Nano entered the sea and eventually found the gate to the palace. As they approached, the gatekeeper bit Lu's hand, causing him to panic. The gatekeeper then sucked Lu and Nano inside the palace. When they woke up, they found themselves in a tunnel filled with fresh oxygen, a clear sign that the palace's owner had returned. Nano heard Klein asking them to report on their current situation. Nano informed Klein that everything seemed normal for now, as they were inside the palace searching for a corridor. Klein responded by explaining that the presence of a long corridor indicated they were inside an ancient grave, which was a significant discovery. He also noted that the grave was mysterious and ancient, with the only explanation for the pure air they were breathing being that the grave system had been reactivated, likely by its owner. This realization made Lu, who initially thought the Dragon Emperor was asleep, worry. Klein then shocked Lu by suggesting that the Dragon Emperor might not be asleep but could be awake and active. Their mission, to place a bomb in the dragon's lair, suddenly seemed much more dangerous. Klein emphasized that their top priority was to survive and make it back alive. Klein then ordered Lu to taste the water in the palace, which was fresh, confirming that the Dragon Emperor was indeed active because the dragon's body required fresh water and oxygen to recover. Klein instructed Lu to pour dye into the water and follow its flow, as it would lead them directly to the lair. As soon as Lu poured the dye, the water began flowing toward the lair, guiding them. As Lu and Nano walked, they noticed that the statues behind them started moving gradually. Nano mentioned to Lu that ancient people used to worship dragons as gods, offering sacrifices to them. They continued their journey and eventually reached a bronze pillar. However, the flow of water suddenly stopped, and they found themselves facing large hand sculptures and bronze statues. Nano, realizing they needed to move forward, kicked Lu into the water and jumped in after him, believing that since the water was flowing downward, there must be a passage below. Nano was aware that Norton was likely hiding somewhere where he couldn't be easily found, so they continued their dive. Suddenly, Klein heard Lu scream and immediately asked Nano what was happening. It turned out that Lu had been terrified after seeing the ocean floor covered with skulls and bones. The remains belonged to people who had been burned to death, indicating that this place was an ancient battlefield, and the bones were those of attackers who had tried to assault the Dragon Emperor. In a desperate move, Nano removed the bandage from Lu's hand and spilled his blood on the ground. Instantly, a massive tornado erupted from above, severing their communication with Klein and Caesar, who then began using their yinglangs. Meanwhile, Nano and Lu had reached an underground island. As they explored, they came across a building and decided to enter. Inside, they found candles lit on a table. Nano wanted to reconnect with Norma, but she realized their lifeline had been cut off. As they investigated further, they noticed 2 mattresses, suggesting someone had been there recently. Nano ordered Lu to sit by the table and began profiling, pretending to be Norton. Nano, regaining her consciousness, started to piece together information about Norton and Constantine, the strict elder brother and the calm younger brother. Although Nano couldn't use youngling, she was skilled in profiling, which she had used when she first met Lu to understand him better. As they prepared to set the bomb, Nano set the timer to 45 minutes. She was shocked when she picked up a candle and it came apart. She had assumed it was connected to a fuel source and had been burning for years, but this discovery indicated that someone had recently refilled and lit it. This realization startled Lu, who panicked and ran outside. Realizing they were in more danger than they thought, Lu and Nano returned to the water only to find that their ropes had disappeared. Suddenly, gears began raining down on them, a sign that the palace was coming back to life and the entire structure was falling apart. Knowing they were running out of time, Lu and Nano decided to head back to the lair, but the palace was rapidly filling with water. They had no choice but to dive underwater in search of an exit. Meanwhile, above ground, Klein and Caesar were arguing. Caesar wanted to dive in to find Lu and Nano, but Klein stopped him, pointing out that the ground had violently changed, and they had no idea what was happening underwater. Their primary objective was to kill the Dragon Emperor, who might already be awake, so Caesar couldn't risk diving in just yet. Klein allowed Caesar to go after an hour, believing that Lu and Nono still had enough oxygen to survive. Lost inside the palace without any guidance from Norma, Lu suddenly remembered a cheat code spell that Mings had taught him. The spell allowed him to see his entire surroundings. Desperate, Lu yelled the spell, and it connected him to Vaughn, who was on Lu's computer. Vaughn asked Lu what he needed, and Lu began asking for the map of the Bronze Palace, hoping it would guide them to safety and complete their mission. Klein's brain was under immense stress because someone was using his mind as a powerful relay to transmit information, pushing him to his limits. Meanwhile, Vaughn was working on his computer, but it wasn't fast enough since he was only an F-rank operator. Despite this, Vaughn completed the analysis and began guiding Lu, telling him that he needed to take a different route than before. Vaughn instructed Lu to immediately take the door below them. However, Vaughn's computer was too slow to keep up with the demands of the mission. Recognizing this, Klein suggested that Vaughn use his B-rank computer, but before he could, Vaughn hacked into the system and started using an S-rank computer, which was far more powerful. As Vaughn continued to guide Lu, Eva appeared on his screen, assuring him that she would ensure their comrades returned home safely. With renewed determination, Vaughn continued to direct Lu and Nono, leading them back to the water where they encountered a large number of floating gears. Suddenly, the ship detected a rapid rise in water temperature, which had reached nearly 50 degrees and was continuing to climb. Rin immediately recognized that this was the work of the Dragon Emperor, who was likely trying to trap them. At this point, Klein was under too much stress to function as the ship's captain, so Caesar, a member of the student union and the only one capable of taking command, stepped in to lead the crew. Caesar quickly began giving orders to the ship's crew, assigning different responsibilities to each member. He instructed the navigator to prepare the torpedoes, which were ready to be launched, and ordered Rin to handle the firing. Just as they were preparing, they felt a massive impact. The navigator informed them that something had punctured the hangar, and soon after, the Dragon Emperor launched a full-scale attack, taking down the navigator. The situation grew dire as a fire broke out in the main engine, and the corridors were severely damaged. With only one launcher still intact and only one warhead left attached to the propulsion system, they realized they were in a desperate situation. They didn't even know where the Dragon Emperor was attacking from. But Rin suspected the dragon was using some kind of youngling technique to hide itself. Caesar, however, was unfamiliar with any such youngling. The only plausible explanation was that the dragon had been hiding beneath the ship all along. With the situation rapidly deteriorating, Caesar ordered the crew to start the ship and attempt to flee. The Dragon Emperor began chasing them at full speed. However, Rin noticed something strange about the creature chasing them. She pointed to a figure on a cliff above. It was Norton, covered in flames. Norton leaped into the water, and the dragon chasing them was revealed to be Samson. Norton landed on Samson and, with a single blow, killed the dragon, telling it to rest. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurred around Samson's body. Norton had fused himself with Samson and attached himself to the dragon's remains. Meanwhile, May was observing Norton from a distance, holding a philosopher's bullet in her hand. She loaded the bullet into her rifle as her client instructed her to leave Lu alive but to kill Norton if necessary. While all this was happening, Vaughn continued to guide Nono and Lu. As they followed his directions, they suddenly encountered a skeleton wearing a diving suit identical to theirs. It was Yisheng, who had sacrificed himself by giving his oxygen to Iki. The skeleton held a box, which Nono decided to take to the surface. Vaughn, sensing the urgency, screamed at them to hurry up. Despite his guidance, they still couldn't find the way out, and Lu began to panic. However, he suddenly realized that he needed to take responsibility and handle things on his own. The path above them was closing rapidly, and Lu began to suspect that the dragons were trying to trap them for some unknown purpose. As they continued their search for an escape, they saw a gate guardian. Nono tried to stop the gate's weight from closing, while Lu prepared to cut his finger to open the gate with his blood. He hesitated, holding the knife, remembering Yisheng's sacrifice and seeing Nono struggling. Finally, Lu made a bold decision. He took off his mask and bit his finger to draw blood. With this, they managed to open the gate and escape. Nono quickly grabbed Lu, and they began swimming to the surface. Meanwhile, Klein, overwhelmed by the stress, passed out. The docking point was still 20 kilometers away, and Norton began chasing them once again. The ship's engines were damaged, and they had no weapons left to defend themselves. Lu eventually woke up with a mask attached to his face. They were still 80 meters underwater. Nono, realizing the severity of their situation, told Lu to swap diving suits with her since his suit was practically dead. Just then, Zhang appeared, ready to assist Caesar and the crew in their desperate situation. The diving bell was dropped to rescue Nano and Lu, but this caused the ship to slow down significantly. The crew knew that if Norton decided to attack during the rescue operation, they would face serious consequences. Just then, a soothing voice came over the comms. It was Jiang, who had arrived to help them in a helicopter. However, Caesar, who was in command, doubted that Jiang's assistance would be effective. He believed that Jiang's Yongling powers would be useless against the Dragon Emperor of Bronze and Flames. As if things couldn't get worse, another engine on the ship failed. While they could still float, one more significant hit would sink them. Caesar immediately ordered the crew to prepare the torpedoes. Although all their alchemical warheads had been destroyed, they still had regular ones intact. The torpedoes were in the cargo bay, but they needed to be armed manually. Caesar's subordinates expressed concern, thinking that normal weapons would be ineffective against the Dragon Emperor. However, they did have storm torpedoes, massive 8-meter-long, 2.7-ton weapons. If one of these torpedoes hit the Dragon Emperor at the speed of a plane, even the mighty dragon wouldn't survive. The plan was risky, though. To ensure a successful hit, they needed to fire the torpedo from a radius of 100 meters. At that range, it would be almost impossible for the Dragon Emperor to dodge or melt a 2.7-ton torpedo. Rin warned Caesar that firing the torpedo would be like launching a space shuttle. It would make a deafening noise, and using the Yongling sickle weasel could rupture his eardrums. Ignoring the warning, Caesar headed to the dock where Norton had suddenly stopped. They were now at the exact spot where Nano and Lu had dived. Rin rushed to the cargo bay to arm the torpedo manually, while Caesar, despite the risks, began using sickle weasel. He started firing bullets at Norton, not to harm him, but to provoke and enrage the dragon. As expected, Norton easily deflected the bullets, but that was precisely what Caesar wanted. While Norton was distracted, Rin successfully armed the torpedo. Caesar then ordered the crew to charge the ship directly toward Norton. Just as Norton was about to dive, Caesar released his Yongling. Jiang was positioned above Norton and launched an attack using Ruler's Flame. Norton countered with the same technique, resulting in a massive explosion that blinded everyone, except Caesar, who had blindfolded himself in preparation. Without hesitation, Caesar ordered the torpedo to be launched. It hit Norton head-on, sending him flying miles away and sinking deep into the sea. The vitals on Norton's readings disappeared, signaling that the battle was over. However, the explosion had left Caesar deafened. Rin hurried to the dock and began communicating with Caesar using sign language. It turned out that Caesar had learned sign language for his mother, and Rin had learned it for herself. Meanwhile, Nano and Lu finally spotted the diving bell and began moving towards it. Nano opened the bell and quickly pushed Lu inside. But just as she was about to climb in herself, she was suddenly pierced by Norton's tail, which had somehow reached her from the depths. Nano began losing blood rapidly, and Lu was thrown into a state of shock. He started having flashbacks of the good times he had spent with Nano. Overwhelmed with emotion, Lu questioned his fate. Why was this happening? He didn't want Nano to die. Filled with fear and desperation, Lu remembered what Nano had told him when she took him to the mountain summit. In a frantic attempt to do something, Lu started banging on the glass of the diving bell, desperate to save Nano. As Lu grappled with the shock of Nano's critical injury and his own swirling emotions, he suddenly found himself transported to a surreal realm, sailing on a bamboo boat. Mings appeared beside him, offering cryptic advice, screaming wouldn't help, but communicating with his Yongling might, urging his heart to resonate with its power. Mings had come because he sensed Lu's life was at risk. He cautioned Lu against wasting time in this strange, timeless space, reminding him that back in the real world, time was still ticking, and Nano's life hung in the balance. Despite the urgency, Mings reassured Lu that the unique time dilation between their realms meant there was still a chance to save her. As Lu rested, trying to gather strength, Mings questioned him about his life's purpose and decisions, pointing out that his journey to Cassell College and joining the student union might not have been worth risking his life. Mings highlighted Lu's unintended accomplishments, like solving the map of the Bronze Palace and challenging Caesar and Jiang, all achieved with Ming's guidance. Reflecting on his life, Lu recalled always feeling insignificant to others, except for a fleeting moment when he encountered Nano, a vision of confidence and grace that had given him a rare sense of worth. Ming suggested that Nano's attention might have been merely pity, not love, but for Lu, even the possibility of pity was a lifeline at his lowest point. Overwhelmed by emotions and the grim reality of his friend bleeding out, Lu felt utterly powerless. Mings then offered a formidable pact. Lu could summon him 4 times for nearly any wish, but the cost would be his life once those wishes were fulfilled or when he felt utterly alone in the world. This deal with the devil was a heavy price, but it held the promise of saving Nano and defeating Norton. Agreeing to the deal, Mings unlocked powerful skills within Lu, including Nogless, which could lock another's Yongling, and the Gathering, which amplified the power of younglings temporarily. Armed with these new abilities and the staying alive youngling that controlled life itself, Lu chose the sickle weasel youngling for its versatility. Ming's then sent Lu back to the real world with a kick. Lu burst through the diving bell, quickly swapped his damaged suit with Nano's to preserve her life, and used his newfound youngling powers to obliterate Norton's tail and heal Nano's wounds. After securing her with a rope and signaling for her to be pulled up, Lu prepared to confront Norton directly. With Ming's guidance, Lu used Nautilus to lock Norton's youngling, stalling the Dragon Emperor's powers. As Norton charged, Lu opened the mystical box Ming's mentioned, summoning 3 out of the 7 legendary weapons it contained. Armed and empowered, Lu attacked, striking Norton's lower jaw and severing it with precision, using the fluid movements provided by his sickle weasel youngling to navigate the underwater battle. With each strike, Lu fought not just for survival but to fulfill a newly embraced destiny, reshaping his path in a world where he had once felt utterly powerless. As the underwater battle intensified, Lu wielded his dragon-slaying blades with newfound determination. Multiple successful strikes left Norton reeling, but Ming's warned that Lu was only temporarily on equal footing. If the fight dragged on, Lu would likely find himself at a disadvantage. Sensing his moment, Norton vanished into the murky depths, planning his next move in the eerie quiet that reminded Lu of outer space. Alone in the vast underwater realm, Lu felt a deep sense of isolation, as though his existence barely mattered to the world above. Ming's, sensing Lu's despair, challenged him, questioning whether Lu was ready to surrender his life then and there. But Lu rallied, defiantly proclaiming his desire to not only survive but to live a life filled with personal connections. He wanted to find love after this ordeal. With renewed vigor and a specific target in mind, Lu focused his attacks not just on the dragon but directly on Norton himself. Utilizing the sickle weasel youngling, albeit clumsily due to his inexperience, Lu finally located Norton. As he prepared to deliver a critical blow, he hesitated upon spotting Lao Tang, his old friend entwined in the conflict. This moment of hesitation gave Norton the chance to seize Lu, threatening to end the battle with Lu's defeat. However, Ming's intervened just in time, aiding Lu in stabbing Norton in the back, causing the Dragon Emperor to bleed profusely and turn pale before disappearing into the sea's depths. Overwhelmed by the turmoil and memories of time spent with Lao Tang, Lu couldn't hold back his tears as Norton's form vanished. Back on the ship, the mood lightened with the news that Nano was safe, lifting everyone's spirits. Drifting away from the boat, Lu was rescued by Rin, who humorously demanded expensive cafeteria dishes as her reward. From afar, May observed the scene, noting Norton's calm escape despite the direct torpedo hit. Determined to end the threat once and for all, she took aim with the philosopher's bullet and successfully executed Norton, his form disintegrating into ashes. Post-battle, the principal praised Lu for his academic excellence, revealing over tea that Lu's thesis about the Dragon Emperors being actually 8 twins was correct, a safeguard strategy by the Black Emperor to ensure the survival of his lineage. During their conversation, the principal explained the dragon's preference for human forms as less problematic and shared more about Lao Tang's background, confirming his true identity and age, and how he regained his memory upon witnessing Constantine's death. Lu's curiosity about the secrecy surrounding dragons led to a simple yet profound explanation from the principal, revealing their existence would plunge the world into chaos. The principal then entrusted Lu with a letter from his mother, congratulating him on his academic success and promising a reunion upon his graduation, further emphasizing the need to maintain the official story that Caesar had slain Norton with the torpedo. Returning to his dorm, Lu found Caesar, Nano, and Jiang busy preparing for Valentine's Day. Nano visited Lu, offering him chocolates and expressing her gratitude for saving her life. As Lu retreated to his room, he discovered a gift from Ming's, a phone that would allow future communications between them, but at the cost of a quarter of Lu's life force, a stark reminder of the pact he had made with Ming's. Despite his frustration with the heavy price, Lu accepted the reality of his bargain. As Lu navigated his complex world filled with ancient dragons, powerful younglings, and deep personal connections, he found himself entwined in the ongoing saga of Cassell College, forever changed by the events he had survived. That concludes the anime recap. As always, if you enjoyed, let me know down below and I'm out.